Hi, I'm Derek for Entertainment Stew, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Overthinking. In this episode, we discuss whether or not it's too easy to be a good guy in video games. In almost every single RPG, there are choices that are made that fall along on either side of the spectrum of black and white morality, or, if we're lucky, somewhere in between. These choices go a long way towards defining the character that we are creating. Unfortunately, it seems like it's often too easy to be the good guy in games like this. In fact, it might even be encouraged. For example, in Mass Effect, I blindly choose the Paragon options. These options are simply the ones that are closest to our idea of what the typical good character are, and most of the time, these actions lead to me playing the good guy. And the funny thing is, you can literally go through the entire game with little to no consequence while choosing these Paragon options. In the Fallout series, you are constantly in a desperate state for survival and surrounded by some of the most unstable individuals. Yet, whenever you help people in this chaotic wasteland, people don't deceive you, you're not mugged or killed. In fact, it's like Star Trek. The power of humanity's innate goodness is shining through or something, and all people needed was a helping hand to show it. When in reality, people are dumb, panicky animals, to paraphrase a quote from Tommy Lee Jones. If you choose to help someone in distress in a situation like that, you should have to weigh whether or not they're going to kill you and take your stuff, maybe out of desperation. Pure malicious intent? Doesn't matter, they're trying to kill you. Despite this, it seems to be a narrative trope that predates video games. Just like movies or books, RPGs create an idealized world where we don't just actively want, but passively expect some degree of wish fulfillment in terms of justice. Even in the less common scenarios where the victory goes to the villain or cruel fate, we need some kind of catharsis to know that at least the protagonist grew a little, or their sacrifice won't be forgotten, or someone knew that they did the right thing. Role-playing games largely forget that the whole point of doing something evil is that it's good for you and bad for the world. There's always some kind of less obvious but usually more powerful reward for doing what initially seems selfish. We, the audience, take that sense of justice for granted. The old Fallout games actually had a not totally obvious karma attribute determined a little bit of haphazardly by your actions in the world, which negatively or positively affected your luck sometimes. In the rare cases when you're doing the right thing actually means sacrifices some sort of bonus weapon or power-up or what have you, gamers often try to find technical/ethical workarounds to have it both ways. In the past, RPGs even had a systematic problem of mostly neglecting the dark side altogether. There are just more quests and more interesting ones exclusive to good characters than the evil ones. You can see the evolution in this in BioWare games. The first Baldur's Gate allowed you and your party members to have good or evil alignment, which at least caused some friction when mismatched. But there are a few interesting evil things you could do, and often the only option to not gain good reputation from a quest was simply to demand a reward for your good deed. The sequel added a whole parallel subquest where you sided with a good faction or an evil one, more or less, but they weren't quite identified as such, and at any rate, it was only a tiny piece of the huge game. Neverwinter Nights introduced the dependable BioWare formula where everything is almost conspicuously balanced, but it was KOTOR, Knights of the Old Republic, where they really worked it out to a science. Pretty much every event in the game was guaranteed to come with a light and a dark side option, and your choices were integral to your character specs, even appearance, and so it stayed pretty constant for Mass Effect and Dragon Age. But this last point actually raises a different problem, a consequence to the original question. Is it too easy to know if you're a good guy in video games? Good, evil, light, dark, paragon, renegade simply becomes a linear axis for your character's design, and you generally pick one direction or the other, or maybe a perfect balance in rare cases. What's missing is difficult decisions where reasonable people can actually disagree about what's the ethical thing to do, and the game doesn't tell you what's right and what's wrong. In the end, it seems like a lot of games don't do bad guy well, so they elect not to and choose to go on the good guy route. The choices don't make sense, they're generally not evil, just petty asshole. You almost never get to be an evil mastermind, just a brainless jerk. Evil decisions in video games should be a more subtle taking advantage of people to your advantage and to their detriment, rather than just being an insensitive bigot. But hey, that's just one way of thinking about it. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and stay tuned next time for our next episode of Overthinking. Bye!